Okay, hello and welcome to this space. This is the final session of Sustainability in the Art Studio, a class that has been developed by myself, Anna Chapman. I'm an artist and art educator in collaboration with the Center for Art Education and Sustainability. And we're presenting it through ecoartspace. And so the members that have participated in this class are from ecoartspace and are artists in their own space and place and time. Um, and yeah, so welcome to those of you who are joining in just to see what we've been up to. I feel just as a facilitator, I feel really lucky to be able to work with so many people who are invested in our relationship to land and place and sustainability in their art practice. And I'm really excited about the projects that have been generated in this class this spring. So yeah, and just a quick note about the class. So over the last 2 months, participants have been engaging in their environment and community through personal projects, exploring natural art processes, environmentalism, and interpersonal healing, inspired by the course content and guest artists. Sorry, I'm letting some people in. And guest artists Tanja Geis, María-Elena Pombo, and Bebonkwe. And so the way we're going to structure today's 2-hour meeting is we're going to kind of popcorn style allow people to present. And so I'll let basically any volunteer start, and each person will have 10 minutes to present, and they may decide to use that 10 minutes as fully for their presentation, or they may decide to break it up and have 5 minutes for Q&A. And get some feedback from anybody who would like to share feedback. And as each person presents, I'm going to set a new header in the chat, and I'm going to record and save all of the notes in the chat. So feel free to comment on anybody's project and provide feedback using the chat box as well. And so with that, who would like to start?
Hi, I can start.
Go
Did you
for
hear
it.
me?
Yeah, go
Okay,
for it.
all right,
Oh, let me enable a screen sharing.
great.
Okay, you should
And
be.
I can figure out how to share my screen here. Um, uh, there we go. It's not letting me get up into the
If you go up to the top and you scroll to the right a little further, it says, "Where do my art materials come from?" I'm guessing that's your presentation.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to it. It's not letting me.
I think
I
if you
have,
just click on it, that header.
it's not letting me access my header.
I think you just have to click on it. It's so if you click on that header to the right of the where it says post attendees Zoom.
I know, post attendees soon.
Oh, up at the top under tools and window and help.
I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Oh, and you want to hit
Oh,
slide.
that's not what I want. I wanted the whole slideshow. Okay. Okay, great. Hi, everybody. My name is Mavor. I live in Portland, Oregon, and I was really excited by a free write exercise that Anna had us do about what matters to us most. And it turns out that matters to me the most at this time is the most alive is communicating where my art materials come from and making it very, very transparent. So I came up with a project with some goals. Oh, and in terms of my 10 minutes, what I would like is I would like to just talk for 5 minutes and get people's reactions for 5 minutes. So be thinking of how you react to what I'm sharing. So my goals were to reveal the source of materials to the collectors and viewers, so it makes them part of the whole life cycle of the artwork. So they're not just getting an object, they're getting a whole story, they're getting a whole connection to the land and connecting with the artwork on a different level. And of course, I want to put my sustainability values to work. So here's some of my core art values. I think I'm going to just scroll through that at this time. So my work at this time is botanical printing on fabric. And here's an example of the kind of information that I want people to know about. I want people to know the specific substrate that I'm using and where it came from. And I have a value of only using reused or vintage materials, no new fabric. And the plants that I use, I really want to name them specifically so that they don't become so it's not just a color or shape. It's the fingerprint of a plant. And the hanging structure, also I'm not going to use framing the materials that are new or not sustainable. So for this piece, it's on a canvas. So I came up with a way of hanging it with the metal of a clothes hanger that I stitched onto the back. So again, it's reused materials. And here's another style of hanging with a bit bamboo poles that I harvested off of our property. So my materials are fabric, cellulose, mostly, or plant leaves, bark and stems, bamboo poles, or clothes hangers. Here's some fun facts about linen. This linen here that I have in the picture was a gift from my sister, who sent it to me in the mail. It's actually 100-year-old linen towels that was in her husband's family. So it was just sitting in their basement. But flax is very resilient. It grows really fast and uses less water than cotton. And this was an interesting fact that it can degrade in a few weeks when buried in soil. And it made me think about linen shrouds that people are buried in. And here are some of the plants which I use when I'm cutting. There is a bracken fern in the spring. So bracken fern, snowberry, coreopsis, willow leaves, fringe cup is a native northwest plant that comes up in the spring. Bindweed is an invasive that we have around here that's a wonderful vine that I've now included as a way of changing my relationship with the plant. And bamboo, lots and lots of bamboo. So here's some the coreopsis flowers. There are lots of varieties, but this is the one I have that keeps coming up each year. And the snowberry is a native Oregon plant too. It's really beautiful. Dark green, the printing, and a wonderful leaf shape. And here is one example of a kind of bamboo that we have here at our eco-village. And here's some that I've cut that is drying. And then to bend the clothes hangers, I use this tool. So it's quite interesting. And, so my action plan, how to communicate, I came up with the idea of making tags for each artwork that list all this information so that they get it each time they buy something. And here's an example of the tag hanging with one of the prints. So it's true that it kind of has the feeling of a object that you'd buy in a store, like a clothes store tag. So it does reference that, but its goal is very different. And here's some of the text which is on the eco tag. I have the description of the series that it's a part, and the dimension, and the plants, and the fiber, and the hanger. Here's some more examples of the work.
And I just want to let you know that we're almost at time if you wanted to get some feedback.
Okay, that's it. I will stop sharing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Does anyone have any reactions? What it makes you feel or think?
I think the artwork itself is spectacular. The prints are really well composed. The colors are expressing exactly what you are with the labels. And the labels are just kind of identification after. But I think the art itself is compelling enough to understand that this is all natural.
Okay, thank you.
I love your idea of the object having a story beyond the object itself, and it feels like your whole spirit is being is part of each object, that there is more to it. It carries an energy with it that transcends the things themselves, and that the separate parts, when put together as a whole, carries something that is not only visually pleasing, but also pleasing on this other level that I just think is really beautiful. And I love the intentionality of it. It's just, I've really enjoyed learning from you, and can't wait to try to do it with some old linen I have from my husband's family.
Cool.
I love your being so respectful to all of these elements and creating a sense of place. And I want to go for a walk with you and look at all these things over time,
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, and building off of that, similar to what we touched on last time, one of the most, for me at least, interesting parts of listening to you speak is when the moments where you touch on your relationship with these plants, where you start to talk about the personality of these plants. And I agree, like I love hearing the way that you narrate your experience working with these plants and why it's important to you to name those plants in your process as you're sharing your work in the process. Mm-hmm. And so just wanted to invite you again to consider like how you might incorporate that narrative or that storytelling into the presentation of your work. Maybe it's through like an artist talk or descriptions on your website. Just leading.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Anne.
Yeah, thank you for listening.
Oh, Ani, we has a comment in the.
Is there a minute? I have a question. I know that the values of the art world really require us to think over the last many centuries more in terms of durability and the value on the market. And of course, that's not what we're doing here or interested in. But how do you respond when someone talks about
that's
how
a great question, and I respond
they're not
that the work,
they fade.
right, that's right. So it's a feature. It's a positive feature that these are highly biodegradable. They don't need to worry about them going into the landfill.
And what lessons does that have to teach
It's a positive.
about the ephemerality of the work?
That's part of the story of the artwork. You know, it includes the materials that came from the earth, and then it will go back into the earth. And the collectors get to have it live within that story. But it does have a different perspective than what we're taught about artwork that needs to be permanent and archival and sold at a profit, hopefully in the future or not. But
it kind of reminds me of the banana at the whatever art fair last year, you know, that sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Talk about ephemeral and useless, right? And so when you think about that, it's like
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah. There's a lot more to say about that. But and regretfully we have to move on just to keep time.
Okay.
Thank
you everybody.
Who would like to go next?
I'm ready.
Go for it.
Okay. We'll get there. Okay, I'm Donna and I live in Massachusetts. And my project is still in process, so I'll be sharing that process. And I hope to finish in time so that you can give me live feedback and put anything else in the chat. I think I told you earlier, I have limited vision, so I have a smart, young, competent, computer competent person who's helping me today. And most of mine will be, so I don't have to read anything, will be more text. You'll see it on screen. And first, I wanted to give you my website because during class 1, when you all wrote yours in, my website was still being updated after many years. And after Wednesday, you won't need to enter Squarespace.
Oh.
So here is the focus of my art.
Oh, Donna, are you going through the slides because we're still only seeing the first slide?
Oh, well, yes, I'm going through slides.
Hold on. Let me figure out. Okay.
Does that work?
No.
No? Okay, hang on.
Olivia says patience.
Okay, can you all see the whole presentation here? Like the different.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So, hold on one sec.
Okay.
Slideshow. Okay, presenter, and then
Right.
your screen share. Oh, hold on a sec. I see the issue. Why is it paused? Oh, it's bizarre. Okay, hang on. Sorry. Okay, well, for some reason the screen share pauses when it goes into presenter mode. So if it's okay with you, we can keep it at this size.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool. All right.
So I can go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
So to give you some background, I thought it was important in understanding what my current project is about. Here are some conclusions from that project. So the question was, what can I, as an artist, do to help? So this is the project. I walk daily and Mondays are recycling in our neighborhood. So I started collecting detergent bottles from recycle bins, cut them up into scraps. And as you can see, inviting participants, anybody, to write one new action on that they're willing to commit to on the plastics. And here's where they've been used. This is at a gallery space on Cape Cod. This is at the Mattituck Museum in Waterbury, Connecticut.
Oh,
They
wow.
had this fish in their lobby, so viewers could see it. And as you can see, it was interesting to kids. And I created a workshop. The last piece of the workshop was a recycle game with all those little eggs. And in September, Deb Claffey, who was in our class, and I are 2 of 4 artists who will be exhibiting in this gorgeous, grand, huge space where there just happens to be a meditation class happening. At any rate, I'm hoping that the curator will be interested in one corner putting the new project I will be describing to you, and in another corner, this using these plastics. This is obviously a mock-up. I'm in my kitchen and plant room, and I have many, many more plastic scraps, so it could be as big as the curator wants. Okay, here's the new project. I don't have a title, so I'm hoping maybe one of you will have some inspiration after you see more about the project. Here's the intent. Okay, so usually with my art, I let viewers fully interpret, make their own stories up. But here I felt I needed to say more. And one of the things I've really gotten out of this class is just what the previous presenter was talking about, conveying more about the materials. So I need to figure out how I would want to do that. About the materials more here. Don't know whether brown thread or black or ivory thread works better. Here I finally got the proper, all the round tubes. The sonotubes have some print on them. I actually like this, the color of the paper, but I have to figure out something to do with the sonotubes that have the text. And the colors really became an issue. These are waxes I wanted to use up. And I like the idea of fetching color, but when I asked a friend what it looked like from this vantage point, she said, well, play tables from a daycare center. Not my intent. So I'm trying to add things to convey more meaning. So one thought was, well, either sand or something that was like this awful plastic. To me, that conveys more ocean. These look more like continents. That wasn't quite right. So we tried this, squashing them all together just for the purposes of the mock-up to convey something about global. Maybe there would be a map on there. But again, that felt like it limited the meaning to countries. So Olivia, my assistant, came up with this idea of just using something to create a circle. So title. I thought at first when I started out, people power, totally cliche, the power of the people, the same thing. Another friend, because he was as enraged at the corporations who aren't doing their part as I am, suggested citizens corporate force. But the project didn't end up really conveying that. So hopefully you'll have some suggestions. Here's some conclusions. But the project doesn't really do that, sadly. So now I'm thinking, the project is complete enough to be thinking about next steps. So that's it. Thank you. And I'm eager for feedback.
Thank you, Donna. Would anybody like to kick us off with some feedback?
Donna, I didn't understand what you're trying to do.
Oh dear.
That's my feedback. I kept on like, why are there those circles? What are they doing?
Oh yeah, well, it's I won't give this project an A. I'm trying to convey the idea that if we live in groups, groups have more power. If we can connect beyond, either within, but likely more beyond our usual groups, be they family, be they community, be they state, be they national, we can have more power. We need to be as powerful as the lobbyists that are going to Washington for the drug companies and the corporations.
So Donna, is that the intention with the string that ties the
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sorry, the string, the threads that
I think
aren't
that
even
if you communicated that and like as a viewer, that wasn't apparent to me. It makes more sense now understanding that, making
Yes.
that connection. Because at first I was wondering, like, what is the purpose of these nails? Why are they in this specific configuration? And what is the intention in these colors?
Yes.
What is the intention of the materials being used? And how are the materials being used part of the question that you're trying to investigate, which is something that you mentioned you were thinking about. I just want to say that I appreciate you're in a moment of struggle, and I think it's really healthy that you're recognizing the ways that what you're trying to communicate isn't falling short of your ideas and intentions. And I also think that it's really healthy the way that you're experimenting so openly, like you're trying on all of these different materials on the floor. And I think that that's just a really healthy approach to creativity in general. I would encourage you to not give up, but to keep experimenting with different materials and thinking about how the materials could be part of the message that you're trying to communicate. And also, is there maybe a community action or event that could happen around this in this space, like similar to, because you had that component in your last project of people actually writing on these plastic artifacts, and that action, like tying those two things together in that moment for that participant, that does something to somebody. And so I wonder, like, what action or could happen in and around this sculpture that you're creating that might help drive home the meaning and the intention behind your work even more. And yeah, writing up the intention, I think, on like a wall plaque and release would be really helpful as well.
Yes.
Many years ago, over 50 years ago, I got a graduate degree in community organization, and we studied some of the writings of Robert Dahl from Yale and what power is. And it seems to me that the connections that exist that you could take advantage of, maybe take a look at some of the things, some of the ideas, maybe you know them already, but all
I
of this
don't.
is about hooking up with, groups, environmental groups whom you trust, and finding out how to inspire and spread, inspire others and spread the word of what you're doing, because a lot of people care, but they don't know where to put themselves and how to organize.
Exactly.
So I just, I really like what you're trying to do. And I think, to just get it around and do it more effectively. I'm in the same boat
Yes.
too, but in a different way. And I just, so I just wanted to put that out.
Thanks.
And maybe you could throw those comments in the chat for Donna to reference later, or the I think the name you mentioned. And regretfully,
Yeah.
we really do have to move on. But María-Elena, I want to give space to, because Maria was one of our guest artists in this class, and Maria has her hand up.
Hi, I'll take it down later. I don't,
yeah.
I'm sorry, I came home from a run and then I saw that you guys were doing this and I wanted to join. And since I had email with Donna, I don't know if this is helpful, Donna, but when I was seeing your piece, it really reminded me of like Pangea. I don't know if in English you pronounce it like Pangea, but like like how the tectonic plates were different before and like you're uniting them. So but I don't know if that's exactly where you're going for, but I really like this self-interpretation, like, okay, yes, because you were saying also you wanted maybe like a map, but then maybe not, because it's not about countries, it's about something else.
Yes.
So I don't know if that's helpful for you, like citizens of Pangea unite, I don't know, something like that. And so something I did think, or maybe even I think sometimes it's so dense, and environmental problems, and there are so many subgroups, right? There's people that are okay, we have to eat local, or there's people like, no, we have to be vegan, and there's people like we cannot travel, and plastic and oil and all these things. So I wonder, because I like the idea of it, like I think it's very poetic, and I would even ask you, sorry, I speak very fast and I speak too much, but if the nails and the thread that you're using to connect, if you're gonna have it stable, or if this is something that you would invite people, to they do it, but I don't know, like
Yes. Yeah.
And like, can each of these tables represent a problem, that maybe responding to the United Nations sustainability goals, something like that, just so people know, because I think it's so many problems that people don't even know where to begin.
Exactly.
And maybe then you help them, like, okay, each table represents a problem, and maybe you are making it with a material that is representing the problem. I don't know, but like I think there's something really beautiful, really poetic in there, but like maybe just like, how can you help the people a little bit more be conscious that they are a symbol of this?
Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Who would, and thank you, Donna, for your presentation. Please update us, let us know how this all pans out for you. Who would like to present next?
I could go, Anna.
All right.
Hi, I'm Margot McMahon. I live in Chicago, and I'd like to share with you my presentation now. The Sustainable Studio. Can you see it?
Yes, it's not full screen, but we see your screen.
Okay, I'll just make it large this way so I don't complicate. How's that? Big enough?
That works. If you can present it, that would be awesome. But this is absolutely fine as well.
Oh yeah, sure. I'll go to slideshow and yep. How's that?
It's still not full screen, but it'll do just fine.
Okay. So the Sustainable Studio, what I'm trying to do is put together a thought process for either adapting your own studio for sustainability, or if you're starting a studio, to start it off thinking about your own materials. So I am an environmental sculptor and want to share with you some of my sculpting techniques, workshop techniques as a starter for how I share using renewable materials from the compost bin or the recycle bin to create artwork. And for all ages, really, this has been from preschool all the way through adults that I give this young artist workshop with the idea of it is for young artists of all ages. And it's taking things out of the recycle box or going to the waste shed or something like that, where that has ex-teacher materials, filling a table with them and giving the group of people a theme. And so with a hot glue gun, we make constructive sculptures. We make clay sculptures for additive if you've got a little frustrated with not having the right size cone. And then we do subtractive sculptures with soap. Then the idea is to take this and those carved pieces, have an exhibition with a group of people. This is the Chicago Sculpture International at the Lincoln Park Zoo to show the diversity of birds, all carved from a tree that was blown down by hurricane force winds. Included in that on a larger scale is we have 55 carved trees in the Chicago parks, over 30 miles of Chicago parks, who were reaching art deserts, as well as giving totems and a meaning to the communities of a belonging from a tree trunk that is still in the ground. So in this way, we're taking individual artists' work. Does this need to be larger? Are you having a hard time seeing it?
Yeah, is that possible?
Yes, let me go back to there.
Yes,
yeah.
thank you. Wonderful.
Okay, so these are tree trunks. Whoa, too far. Let me go. No, yeah, these are tree trunks that have been carved, and that is an actual electrical box that for the apartment dwellers above, they look down on a chessboard and they see the queen and the knight chess pieces.
Wow.
So taking that as the thought process of going from small things out of your recycle bin to community involvement with exhibition and a project that's gone on since 2013 now. Go back to the studio and using clay and aluminum and recyclable materials to make forms of nature, human, plant, and animal. Use plaster that breaks down. Use concrete that will break down in time, but also be a permanent material for outdoors. And with a group of high school students, we built a concrete piece that was in a park in Chicago. So it takes the individual process, makes it a community event to show how to do artwork that is both permanent and breaks down over time. Another surface rather than concrete was with a group of second graders to gather violent toys and make the symbol of us. I think I hear somebody talking, but I'm not sure. Make a symbol of peace by making the surface of it recycled toys and taking them away from kids so they're not playing those same games. So now with painting techniques, how to make that process work for painting. I use a process of painting called technique mix, which starts with tempera. And so through Anna's research, I found how to make the first stage of this, black and white stage, using raw eggs. Now the emulsion part on the top is the tempera part. And then there's an imprimatur, and then there's medium and oil. So I've gone through and looked at how to make watercolor from stones, how to make acorn ink, coffee ink, and to share this idea of how to think about your materials differently so that you're not going out and buying tubes and plastic tubes of paint when you could make it at home and make it fresh for each painting and get used to your own palette. by finding nature-friendly dyes. So with this is for further reading. The Organic Artist, which Anna introduced me to, and these sets of books that will give you more materials for yours. So what I've done is put together, by no means an encyclopedic telling of how to set up a studio, but a thought process of when you start a process for your own work, how to find the materials, how to think about the materials, and how to place those in your own studio space, so it's healthier for you, it's healthier for the collector, and it's a healthier process for everyone.
Wow. Bravo.
Thank you, Margot. I want to say this in my background here is egg tempera. You can get all kinds of colors on parchment, on animal hide. Get all kinds of colors with natural paints.
So I put in the chat, well, let's say I better send it. The place I plan to publish it is on the Green Blocks Initiative webpage of Yale Blue Green website. And the hope is to draw in students who are going to start off and build their own studios and find a place to work, and to start with this process while they're in school and sorting through the materials. And then also for alumni to come in, and any artist to come in and use this as a thought process change, if that's possible. And then also, if I could figure out a way that we could share materials and share sources and things like that in an ongoing way.
You need a center at Yale.
A kind of blog
Yeah,
interaction, I think. Yeah.
We just set one up at UMass for just a material corner where people can read and share it, and any materials that they're using. And it's been a great resource for all of the students.
At UMass, in Amherst?
Yeah, similar
Yeah.
to the what's that upcycle place in Chicago that you and I both spoke about?
The waste shed.
Yes, such an awesome project.
Wow.
Well, that's exciting, Margot. I'm and by all means, you know, anything that's in the Google Drive, you're welcome to share as resources.
Thank you very much. And if anyone has any that you think would fit in with this, I'm willing to put as many variants out there as possible, without making it, you know, too much of an overload, but I want to give the thought processes. And so far it's kind of painting and sculpture, but there could be drawing, there could be ceramics, you know, those kind of things. Like raku would be a form where you don't really use glazing and you use one firing that's in a bucket of hay, you know, with just a little bit of bisqueware glaze on it maybe. But, you know, so processes like that, I'm very interested in. If you'd love to share it with me or willing to share with me, I'm open to it. I'll put my email in the chat as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, Margot.
I'm happy to pass along as much information as I can and keep going with the process of environmental sculpture on a community level.
Here, here. Community archive in the works. Well,
Yes.
stay connected.
Thank you for sharing, Anna. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Who would like to go next?
I can, if you want. Okay, now let's see. I've never done this before, so oh. Now, first I have to share the screen, right? Hello.
Your screen is being shared. You just might want to put this slideshow into presentation mode, which I think in your upper left-hand corner it says play from start or play from current slide.
Okay, yeah, I got it. Great. Okay, does everyone see that or?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. I'm a little different. I think I'm way behind everybody because we had COVID. It's before the start of this whole session, and it just threw us off a lot, and just life, you know. So I'm still at the point where I'm wanting to examine all of these resources, but I thought I would just tell you quickly, and I might have to go pretty fast because it's just a few minutes. So about 50 years ago, I, never having studied visual arts, I found myself drawn to prints done by Ansel Adams, Minor White, Dorothea Lange. And then in 1980, I attended a workshop at Yosemite that was taught by Ansel Adams and quite a few of his assistants. And I worked with hands-on equipment. I mean, I was a novice and I worked with all this stuff, used an 8x10 camera and processed the images, making contact prints with printing out paper in the sun and taking them into the darkroom and fixing them, and all kinds of, you know, hands-on tasks that I miss a lot, but I'm not entirely out of the darkroom, thank goodness. But anyway, a little later on, I switched to the roll film, the 120 roll film, because of problems at the airport. And so I was attracted to black and white infrared film, which is what this image is. And you know, just I was wowed by the fact that it revealed things that we couldn't see with our eyes. So that was the start of trying to investigate the environment that was not limited to my vision, but to, you know, that was there nonetheless. And trees have always interested me from way back. So I started with that, and then let's see, we'll go to the next slide. I was completely startled when I turned around and saw this. This is not manipulated. These are false Kamani trees on the back of the beach in Hawaii. And I printed this on aluminum to capture the luminosity. It's a, you know, just absolutely awesome scene that I found myself looking at. And now this was a light box made up of several layers of images, each spaced apart from the others and backlit using an LED panel as a light source. My purpose in doing this was to create a sense of time and space dimensionality. I'm just going to go through these because just to give you an idea of what I've been looking at over many years. And then I realized that this kind of muted tonality underscores the fact that color itself, regardless of content, can affect a mood conveyed. And I began to be interested in that aspect too. And then we have an orchid cactus, an epiphyllum, that blooms every 5 or 6 years. And the bloom itself lasts only a couple of days. And so that, of course, introduced the fact that the rites of passage can be very condensed, and it's very sobering. And I was sad every time, you know, we've had the plant for 40 years, so I've witnessed this fairly often. Well, not often, but number of times. And then this is about interconnectedness, and that's what we all hope to realize in our lives. And the scan of body tissue and an image of the moon in the background, and in the foreground, trees reaching across to each other. They're separate entities, but they're critical to the integration essential for life itself. And then there was this, you know, scene that emphasized the force and importance of water for all of us. I mean, water is so much a part of our lives and so important for existence. This is a photograph of a 60-foot wave that I printed on translucent habitat fabric. And that's something I have to investigate, how archival, or how, you know, what are the rudiments of creating fabric like that. I mean, I'm so interested in learning about inks that aren't harmful. So I'm just, you know, just showing you these things because this is what I want to focus on and do in a more conservationist and respectful way in the future. This was, let me just see if I can get this to play, because it, yeah. So I had this on fabric and it's loose at the bottom, and I placed a fan nearby so that it would create the movement that I saw in that actual wave, or reflect it. So this past October, I received a residency at the Vermont Studio Center, and I began the month armed with a complex plan for how I would spend my creative time. Well, that soon changed. I found myself completely drawn to the specific Vermont trees. I live in Minnesota, the bodies of water, as well as to the mushrooms and the milkweed and other such plants. And with regard to the mushrooms in particular, one reason was that they sprouted and aged rapidly, again, like my orchid. And they died, and I was sad. And I kept going back to look for them. And it just, you know, it was like, how can we best understand and nurture the systems of survival? This was some water in that slide, and just the trees, the veins of the trees. And here's like the family of mushrooms. This is like the first thing I encountered. I said, my God, that looks like a family. And, you know, things changed over time, and they, over a few days, and they died. So just, you know, I was trying to manipulate the mushroom photographs, the images, and to show, you know, other aspects that, again, shifting the color spectrum to show things that were recorded, but I couldn't see that with my eye. I actually tried to do some black and white too, because that's a different articulation, but and so then I brought them together, and so, oh, I have to go to this. All right, wait a second. I want to push pause here. Wait a second. I'm going to go back out of this. So finally, during the period of quarantining due to the recent and current pandemic, I walked along the roads near our home in Minnesota. And these white puffs, this video that I'm going to show you, is created from just that one image. I just changed it around. I, you know, manipulated it. And that is the puff from a dandelion flower. It's called a pappus. And it just, I passed so many of them, they frightened me because they look like the virus. And I was fixated on them, and it led me to create this video and manipulate the image many times and rephotograph the various configurations that resulted. And I added the music that I felt complemented it. If it's too loud, just turn your volume down, and I'll play this now.
Oh, and we can't hear this sound,
Oh,
just so you know. There's something you have to do specific to audio. I'm not tech adverse enough to walk you through it.
oh.
I'm sorry.
Well, before you share your screen, you need to check the sound share. So you should stop sharing screen, and then when you start again, make sure that you check the box says sound share.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because we only have a minute or two left, though, maybe we'll just watch the video without the sound, if that's okay, unless you feel like the sound is important.
Well, it is. Maybe you know what? Maybe I could put a link in the chat or something. It's on my website. So, yeah. Can you hear?
Yeah, but Anne, I am curious then, just if you could maybe share in a few words, like what this sound is doing as we're.
It's warrior music, and it's ominous. It's you know, I never did this sharing before, so
it's kind of like planting in our of like feelings of sort of dark undertones because of the way that these shapes are of these dandelion are so similar to the COVID.
Yeah, it's warrior music. It's oh, that's a shame. I don't know where that, well, why don't I just try to put it, you know, put a link to my website, and anyone who's interested can go on the website and look under videos. It's there. Yeah.
Thank you, Anne.
I'm
And you know,
sorry.
maybe we'll see how we're doing on time. Maybe if we have extra time at the end, we can circle back and try to
Yeah.
watch this with
Oh, I'm
with the
sorry.
sound. It's okay.
Okay.
That was great to see. So what this connection that you're drawing, like how does that make you feel? Like what feelings are coming up for you in this process, in this project?
Well, just to investigate, you know, I mean, I think there are eco printers and things like that. I mean, things that I could do. I certainly have recycled for many, many years and compost and all that kind of stuff, but I haven't used that directly in my artwork. I mean, 30 years ago when my son's school they had recycling. We didn't have any. I used to take huge bags over there. I had permission to recycle all my paper. And all the kids would say, "Hey, Dan, isn't that your mom? What's she doing?" I was, you know, nobody was doing that then, but that's how firmly I believed in taking care of resources and not being wasteful. So, you know, I want to do that with my work. And that's why I signed up for this. And to try to, and I have all these sources, I just have to do it. You know, the sources that I've gotten from all of you.
Well, thank you so much for sharing, Anne. We have to move on to the next person, but anybody who has any comments or please drop them in the chat. And thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and I think, yeah, awesome. Who would like to go next? We haven't been doing a round of applause after each person. I feel like we should be doing the snaps and the claps like last time. Bart, and then maybe Lynn. Cool.
Yeah, okay. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. I wish this class could go on for another 3 months because I didn't get anywhere near as far along as I wanted to. But for the people who haven't heard about my situation, I've been really involved in doing a lot of academic administration lately, and I have been getting further and further away from my art practice. So one of the reasons that I've taken this course is to try to begin to get back into my art practice but kind of reinvent it a little bit or kind of find myself. And one of the great things about this class is that I think we all similarly share some struggles with, wanting to create work and put work out in the world, but, do it in such a way that there's some ecological benefit. So, a lot of this course has been.
Bart, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I did just want to let you know that your audio is a little bit choppy, but
Oh, no.
I can make out what you're saying. But I don't know if you had a quick, easy fix or that.
Let me
It's
see.
kind of not.
I'm going to switch my microphone. Is that any better?
Yeah, that is better. Thank you.
Okay, I've got I have a lot of technology around me here, so that's one of my problems. We'll talk about that in a second. So where was I? Well, I think one of the things about this was, the first couple of weeks of this course, I was trying to, learn from what was being presented and really trying to find ways that I could map what I do onto what you were all doing and what I was learning from all of you. And a lot of things about community, I was really trying to find my community. And during this course, we had that train spill. I live in Ohio, and I don't know, maybe about 60 miles away or 100 miles away, we had in East Palestine, we had this train spill. And, I was thinking a lot about that and watching interviews of people that live there, and they kept saying, well, they wanted to know when it was safe to go back to their homes. And so the government was coming in and doing all of this different, testings of soil and water and air quality. And I thought it was really interesting because that's kind of what I do. So I thought that would be, maybe if I could start doing some work with what I know about sensors and incorporating that into my practice. And then actually I thought about community, and the community that I'm really the most a part of is my school and working with my students. And so I thought about ways that I could build out some kind of a curriculum where I could teach people about how to use sensors, specifically environmental sensors, and collect data and then create art with that data. So I didn't realize how much I had bit off when I started this. I probably bit off a little bit more than I could chew, but let me show you and share with you what all I've done. And let me see if I can switch cameras here. And oops, let me actually stop share. I think I just switched cameras. You guys can all see this? All right, perfect. So what I did is I started working with, see if I can get this in focus. Started working with some sensors. So I've been using this platform. This is an Arduino platform. I don't know if people are familiar with this, but this is a sensor. This is an air quality sensor. And one of the things that I worked on for this class was I designed, or I learned about how to design a data logging system that takes in basically particle information from this sensor, records it on a little SD card, and then I graphs that. So I worked with one of these. I set this up and ran it in my office for a couple of days. And then I also did another one where I worked with a temperature sensor, a temperature and humidity sensor. So a lot of the work that I did was in researching these different technologies and figuring out how to collect the data. So let me share my screen now. And let me see if I can. So what I was able to collect, so this is the data that I collected from my air quality sensor. And I haven't been able to actually go through and parse this data and get anything meaningful from it yet. I'm still working on that. But essentially what you're seeing here is throughout the course of a day, when the heater kicks on and the air blows through the vents of the heating ducts here, you'll see that these spikes in poor air quality, essentially, every time that the heater kicks on. That's about the only obvious thing in the data here. And these are just any particles in the air that are above a certain size are recorded at this on this line chart. And you can see there's several different particle sizes that can be measured here. Pretty boring technical stuff, but this is where I'm starting from. And then on the technical side of things, I've been spending a lot of time trying to write the code to do all of this data logging. So one of the things I've done is, can you guys see this? Am I sharing this? I've gone through and I've actually written comments in all of this code just so that I understand how the technology works. So in doing all that, it was kind of, I went down a nerd wormhole learning all of that. And to try to bring it back into something for this class, one of the things I worked on was to create a video, like an instructional video. And I've never done one of these instructional videos. Like, I think it's, is it Robert Reich, or it's one of those guys who kind of draws as he lectures. And I've never done that before, so this is my first attempt. I'm not going to show the whole thing, but hopefully you can see it or hear it. I'm going to try. If you can't hear it, let me know.
Can't hear it.
All right. Let me just see if I can. Let me see if I can. Try this. Because in order to really understand how sensors work, we should know how basic electronics work. And to discuss basic electronics, I'm going to use the analogy of how plumbing works, because the way that water flows through a pipe is actually very similar to the way that electrons flow along a wire. Now, a few weeks ago, I installed a rain barrel outside my home. So many of you probably know how a rain barrel works. Rain barrels fill up with water from the rain. The rain comes down, fills up the rain barrel with water. Now, this rain barrel, when it's full, has a lot of potential energy, especially I've got it raised up off the ground, so there's gravity pulling down on the water. There's also some atmospheric pressure pushing down on the water. So there's a lot of what we might say potential energy stored inside of this rain barrel. Now, the rain barrel is actually very similar to a battery, and a battery stores electricity. And that stored electricity also has potential energy. And what we call that. All right, so I don't want to take up all your time with that and bore you with that, but just to give you an idea of how I'm operating, is what I'm trying to do is to create a video series explaining very basically how electronics work, and then how sensors work, and then continue that into developing a couple of videos about how these specific sensors that I'm using work, and then have another couple of videos that explain how you can use these as tools for artists to collect data and create imagery with it that explains, I don't know, whatever the sensors, whatever the data reveals. And so I'm really interested in doing this in some kind of way. Maybe it could become a course that I teach here at the university. It could be a workshop that I do for various community groups. One of the things that I want to do with this is I want to apply to some art residencies. There's one in particular called Studio in the Woods, which is down in New Orleans. And I'd like to work with them to continue to develop this and present it in the community, and actually have some sensors that people could take out into the community and collect some data and bring it back and do some art projects with it. I'd also want to do, the one thing that I did, I researched my local area here, and we have what we call a metro parks system. So there's a huge park district, or a series of parks in the Toledo area, and they're really phenomenal. And one of the things, they have a program where you can volunteer as a citizen scientist to go around and collect data. So one of the things you can do is you can go to the local river, the Maumee River here, which has problems with algae blooms. And you can go into that river and do water sampling and do different collections like that, and work with scientists to make recordings of the current health of the river. And so I'm interested in doing more of that with my work, and again, creating some resources for people to learn about this. Maybe even create a side course in citizen scientistry. I don't know what the word is on that. But anyway, this is the direction I'm hoping to continue with my work. It really dovetails nicely with everything I have to do academically. And I think it's a really great way for me to even create some artwork myself and hopefully get maybe a show or to publish some work, hopefully soon. So that was a lot. I'm sorry I wasn't in a nice slideshow presentation for you, but I think once I started going down the nerd wormhole with all the technology, I kind of lost sight of everything else. So, but I actually accomplished a lot for this course.
Bart, thank you. That's so exciting, and that is so empowering for artists. And somebody did correct me the other day when I said citizen scientist. It's a different word. There's a different word people are using other than citizen, because citizen implies like only people who have citizenship have like access to this kind of work. But anyhow, I think that it's just such a powerful resource for the general public, let alone artists. And I think you're just a natural born educator. I think that the way that you're communicating these ideas with the idea of through symbols and drawings speaks to different learning types, like the visual and like the auditory. And you might even want to put subtitles in those to make them more accessible to and even multilingual subtitles. And the other thing I wanted to say was, oh yeah, and I love that you're thinking strategically about where you might implement this in like places that have connections to climate or pollution disasters. And yeah, spaces of like historical environmental racism, like sites that are like, how can the public use these tools to advocate for what they're facing in their community, and then pair up with some lawyers and get shit moving. That's awesome. Thanks so much, Bart. Who would like to go? Claps again. Who would like to go next? Oh, Lynn, you're next, right?
Sure, happy to. All right, so what you're going to see is actually part of what, let's see, where am I? Is what you saw last week a little bit, but I'm going to add to it. So my main piece is this idea of my being a micro photographer. And what does that really mean? Microclimate photographer, and this idea of cultivating a kinship with land and myself by paying attention to the materials. And I really was inspired by, I love your work and I just think it's super cool. And I'm just trying to explore how I can feel or share the joy that I feel when I'm actually interacting with materials. And so as I showed last week, I interact with all kinds of materials, whether it's old stuff that belonged to my mother, it's compost, it's stuff at the landfill, or it's these books that are decomposing in my backyard. I'm just really curious about exploring what happens to stuff. But the thing that really keeps impacting me is this question of how can I actually transform myself in this idea of kinship? And I'm just really curious about that piece. And it's kinship with not just the materials themselves, but really with myself in relation to the earth. And I keep trying to make sense of it all. And I shared this photograph last week, but I've been doing a lot of self-portraiture lately and really exploring what does it feel like? Like, what does it physically feel like to physically be a being in relationship to the physical world and physically in relationship to the materials I'm working with. And so I've just keep working on that. And it's been a pretty intense last couple of weeks for me. So I haven't gotten quite as far as I wanted to, but as I showed before, like my work is compost. Here it is. I've had shows. It's been all over the place in these frames. And I really don't want to have my work in frames and all those materials. And I really don't want them printed on fancy bleached paper that I don't know what toxins went into it. So I really want my work to be in sync with the message. And so I've actually been doing quite a bit of research. And I really want to think about my practice as a photographer. And the first part I want to work on is, and I've been starting to practice, is really focusing on the relationships. And this ties in a lot with what you were saying, Donna, about these different communities that we're a part of. And I feel like I'm actually part of many communities and I'm connected to them, but I'm not really connected. Like I'm not really in relationship with the organizations I'm a part of. There's a lot of talk, there's a lot of things I could say, but what does it really, again, feel like for me to be in relationship with the other tenants and the other artists in my building? What does it feel like to be in relationship with other photographers who are interested in this work? There's a group called the Kinship Photography Collective that I think some people belong to ecoartspace also, but there's this new group and I've just joined it, and it's like they're talking about this sort of thing. And I really want to try to take time to experience and actually practice what it is that I've been talking about in the abstract for so long. And in terms of my actual work, to really, and I've been thinking hard about this question about edition sizes and expectations. And I really want to minimize waste in the production. And I also want to be connected to the production process itself. But as a photographer, you do need some resources and some materials. And I actually want to make some zines and handmade books. And I really probably should have a printer so I can be in control of that and make it more intimate. But then you're buying the printer. And I feel like as I'm going through all of this, there's so many trade-offs, and it's like this constant sense of, well, you can just never do enough, right? And whatever you do, there's going to be bad shit about what you do. And so how do you take what could be feel like it's not okay and, you know, justify it? And so I'm really trying to explore this idea of not having my work just be hung on walls, but having it be in more democratic forms, in the form of a zine that is maybe made of newsprint, or handmade books that are limited editions. And I had the fortune, I did some work, and we actually have something called the Dartmouth Book Art Studio right here, literally a mile from my house. And so they have a ton of resources on their website. And I've also been exploring papers, and I just discovered this photo innovation lab outside of Chicago where they print on paper that is like rag paper. It's all recycled, it's all eco-certified paper, and they're a photography group. So I just found that this past week. So I've really been trying to dig in. I've also been exploring organizations. There's this place called Spoonflower where you can print your work on fiber, and they'll print it for you and they'll make stuff out of it, and it can be available and you can actually sell it. Like people could buy upholstery made out of my compost pictures. I mean, wouldn't that be fun? And I could limit it and just say you can only do it on the organic fiber. So there's just some interesting avenues here that I'm exploring. And as I showed last week, I've been cutting up my old prints and turning them into these little books just to practice making books and having so much fun. And then I actually did this class at Dartmouth. They had their free evening class, and I made this book, and just had so much fun learning about how to do it. And they have all the materials available. And I brought this book home, and I'm really motivated to do more and to learn not just on my own, but in community with this group that already exists. Like I don't want to reinvent any wheels. And so as I'm trying to bring joy in my beginner's mind and kindness, I realize that I really am exhausted and I'm overwhelmed by all of it, like all of these conversations and all of these possibilities for how we can do all these things. And I've actually been kind of intensely overwhelmed in the last few days by just some of that. And so this image sort of represents me doing one of my self-portraits in my studio, and then the whirlwind of shit that's going on, and trying to stay centered. And so I feel like for me, the best way to do that is to connect with these groups, and to actually be connected with the groups and the people who are doing this work like me. And whether I'm able to do it perfectly, sustainably or not, I'm really actually going to stop worrying about, because I feel like the most important thing is being in community and in conversation, and I can do the best I can, but I know I will always be imperfect. So since I will always be imperfect, I'm going to stop trying for perfection in this whole area. And that was kind of getting me down, was I was just like, oh, so that final image of me just feeling like this whirlwind, I just have to let go of some of this. And so anyway, I'm here and I'm happy to be in community with all of you. And we'll see what I do with my photography. And someday maybe you'll see it hanging on fiber from sticks, and which is what my hope is for the next iteration.
Thank you so much, Lynn. So inspiring. You know, a couple of things are coming to mind. One is the personal is political. I love how you just coming into like you just sharing your experience navigating this work is in itself like I don't know. There's a very artful approach to it. And I was reading this Clarissa Pinkola Estes the other day. She was talking about how sometimes people experience artist block or writer's block, and a way to navigate through that is just simply to do something, because thinking connecting it to the way water flows. If you're flowing, you're moving, and you simply just have to do. And so thinking about like this comment that you made about perfectionism that can be so stunting to our growth, and there's something so liberating about and generative about just going for it and not worrying about needing dead ends and letting that be part of the process. And I also think it's so healthy the way that you are thinking critically, like really evaluating what is the quality of my relationships to the projects that I'm entangled with, and really coming back to that as like a home base. And yeah, it sounds really beautiful and healthy and good for you. We have a few more participants left. Deb, do you want to go next?
All right.
And did I hear correctly that you and Donna are going to be doing a show together?
Yes, we have a little collective called Elemental, and in the environment is our focus. And there are 4 of us, and we have 4 completely different perspectives on how we view sustainability and environmental issues and everything. And mine has been from the plant's point of view, or my connection to the plants. And let's see, that gets in the way there. What I thought I'd do from current slide. The slideshow didn't start? Resume slideshow. There we go. We're good?
Yes.
For sharing? I wanted to read something I wrote to Anna because I was trying to figure out what to do. And I think I'm just going to go through my work, if I can do 2 things at once here. My project in sustainability will not be a single thing. It will not be a paper or event or intervention or demonstration. If I persuade you through my actions to begin to listen, it is my being in this world listening. If I persuade you through my actions to begin to listen too, then that's a good thing. But the success of my project will be in continuing to live and to listen well, not in persuading people to listen. My point of view is that our world is a verb. I breathe, the world breathes. Plants, animals, and all the classifications and namings we have made for what we own to use. This project, my being in the world, listening and breathing, what does that mean? What does it not mean? How does it provide value to others? How does it manifest? If I am listening well, then I'm hearing you. I'm hearing the plants and animals and bacteria and fungi and birds and oceans and rocks and soil breathing. At the moment, I am painting, drawing, and sharing with others the hows and whys of painting in the most personal way that I can, and sharing that. It seems that this is the most important action for me to take. The nuts and bolts of it, making my studio sustainable, etc., is an ongoing process, totally intertwined with my caring for gardens and sharing sustainability even in the suburbs, sourcing whole food, caring for this body, this mind, and family. Cue the music. I can say something about materials. This whole new series of work is all using reused canvases, rice paper, inexpensive materials, reused paints, and house finishes from the basement. And that's it. Oh, I do have one more thing to say. I came to this class looking for language, number one, looking for language on how to connect what I'm expressing emotionally in my paintings with the themes of sustainability and the environment and caring for the other beings that live on the planet with us. And Donna pointed out very clearly that I was finding it by listening to all of you and putting down my thoughts in writing. And it's been worthwhile. And I'm glad to have been here. And thank you, Anna, for such great leadership.
Thank you, Deb. Wow, there was something, I was very moved listening to you read your statement as you were scrolling through your work. There was something very poetic about it, and it really brought life to your work.
Good, thank you.
I wonder if
I just,
anybody,
yeah, I just wrote that in the chat, Anna, too. But I mean, yes, your voice, Deb, is just. I just felt like, this is gonna sound really corny, but I felt like a little kid being read to in a really cozy, wonderful way. Like I wanted to like snuggle up next to you and have you just read what you were saying, because given like where I am right now, it just felt so wonderfully reassuring, and it felt so beautiful, and sort of your imagery reflected this power of the intertwinedness of our lives. And you brought family and the garden, and you brought all of it into what you were saying, and the work itself reflected the spirit of that. It was just, anyway, beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I think it's important because we can get easily overwhelmed and intimidated. In fact, I'm almost always overwhelmed and intimidated by the task ahead of us in terms of trying to straighten out the mess we've made. And every time I bring it back to my personal attempts in my days and breathing and being in the place I am in completely presently, that always seems to shift the energy back to doable. Otherwise, you know.
Yeah, and you know, Deb, there's like a quality of reflection that's inherent in your statement. Like, you know, you reading your statement was different from you than just shifting to a more casual approach of talking about your work. But when you're reading your statement, there's a little bit of a thread of like invocation or manifesto in it, in the sense where you're sort of you're demonstrating a little bit like what you're getting at, this quality of presence, and like almost like a revelation that you come to about a quality of presence of being. And there's something in it, sort of becomes an action item, like the way that you speak it. And I just would encourage you to consider that as like, you know, maybe a part of an art form to consider in the way that you present your work, or the way that you share your work and these ideas with others.
That's an excellent idea. Thank you. Never thought of it. That's a good one. I will think about it.
I was really touched by the sort of genuine, you almost present it as a dilemma to me. Or I don't want to go so far as to say a dilemma, but it was a genuine reflection that you had in your email exchange with me, where you were like really thinking through these things. And I think just showing putting your heart on your sleeve a little bit is, for me, at least as a viewer and a listener, powerful to experience and relatable. So yeah, thank you. Who would like to go next?
I think I'm the last one, right?
Are you, Jenny? You might be.
I'm looking at everyone else's name.
Thank you.
Jenny, I came across a couple of resources I'm excited to share with you. I'm going to find them. And yeah, I'm excited to see where you're at now.
Oh, okay. Oh, I just didn't even realize my camera wasn't on yet. Okay, hold on. Okay, hello. So sadly, I'm just going to read a bunch of things and drone on and on. So I just actually prepared this project for a grant opportunity, I guess. So I just made this like 50-page thing, and it happens to be organized that way. So I think what I'll do is share my screen and just show a little bit of that. Hold on. Wait, Zoom, share screen. Okay, so this is my little flow chart for the project that I mentioned last week, and I'm really grateful that this grant opportunity came around and really forced me to put it into writing, because it's something that's been percolating for at least 5 years, if not more. But just as a reminder, so I was really interested in, I think this germinated with my interest in the general concept of how, quote unquote, everyday people outside of academia carry around the concept of race in their bodies, in their minds, in their emotions, like what's the operational kind of definition for them of this concept of race, and particularly people who identify as Asian, Pacific Islander, in America. And for the purposes of this grant proposal, I limited it to LA County, which is where I live, Los Angeles County in California. So I think I'll just, since this is the most succinct way to do this, I'll just read a little bit of the proposal that it submitted. So as an overview of the project, it invites candid, nuanced, rich, and evolving narratives from Asian and Pacific Islander adults, so people aged 18 or over, across LA County regarding social issues such as mental and physical health, domestic violence, sexual assault, and racism. The project will further invite responses to a wider range of questions around the concept of race, political affiliation, immigrant generation, spiritual beliefs, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, education level, relationship to nature, and other factors that provide an intersectional view of how social issues are experienced across different populations and individuals. So it's basically like an alternative census that kind of looks at sustainability from a really both bird's eye view, as well as trying to get at different ways that we collect narratives and data. So these narratives will be documented and presented in complementary visual and auditory ways, capturing the texture of profoundly personal and idiosyncratic manners of expression, as well as providing data points for different kinds of analysis, such that as a whole, the project strengthens participants' communities. And so my data gathering methods will range from more intimate to larger scale. And I guess I can go into that one, sharing more of this images. So while intending to provide a space for healing, my project does not assume that discrete issues like depression or domestic violence can be quickly targeted and solved. It is rather more open to ways in which people often find themselves unable to pinpoint exactly what they are experiencing or why. And so, since sustainable solutions to health and social maladies must reach the root systems, which are likely more complex than symptoms suggest, this project is one of continual unearthing that necessarily gradually builds trust and invites deeper sharing. And along the way, the project enables participants to connect with existing counseling and other community resources to support them in addressing issues that they might articulate, and to also add to and adapt and change their narratives over time. And of course, all the participation is totally voluntary and anonymous if they want it to be, and they can remove their data at any time. So it's really just, it's almost like an alternative to social media as well. So, okay, let me go back. So this is just a little, it's pretty basic, just like a flow chart of, I'm in kind of the research stage now. I've been for a while. This is kind of the blown up research. So basically, since I'm now in my 40s and I've gone to school for pretty much everything, and I'm realizing one of the reasons I took this class is that if I'm not in a class, I don't know who I am. So I think I need to be in class to function as a person at this point. But I'm really interested, I think in terms of my interest in sustainability, it feels most authentic and natural for me to think of it in terms of systems or everything being interconnected. So for example, how does our relationship to race intersect with our relationship? Like, how do the way we conceive of race in our human bodies and the ways we think about and relate to nature and land and property identity, things like that. So that's the research. And then the next phase is developing partnerships with local institutions. So they could be academic, arts organizations, and Asian community organizations. And they can partner at many different levels. So they can, be involved in discussions around research, which is where I've mostly focused my attention now. They could be involved in implementing the, the different kinds of like the surveys, the interviews, the group art making projects. They can be involved in exhibiting, doing outreach to get people to participate, and also maybe having satellite programming like educational panels around this. And then so as far as the different methods I would use for the narrative or data collection, I'm really interested in doing a multi-layered approach. So I would have like an online survey that's very kind of broad and publicly accessible to anyone who identifies as an adult Asian Pacific Islander in, LA County. And that survey would include a range of different kinds of, like invite different kinds of responses. So not just like which of these, like multiple choice or short answer, but kind of like, draw your mood or, something that's just more, would be within the realm of art or expression that can't be really succinctly captured in a traditional survey. The next level down would be like a group art making session or discussion. And so these are kinds of workshops where people can create objects that relate to personal narratives. And as they're doing this, they can, there can be a kind of framework, or it can be done more loosely where people are kind of sharing narratives, maybe fleshing them out more than they would be doing in a survey, in an online survey. And then finally, there's a one-on-one interview. I feel like people just share information so differently depending on the format, depending on the scenario of the engagement, I guess. And so on the one-on-one interview, you're just, I would just be, or whoever else would be interested in interviewing another person. And this could also be like, for example, someone who maybe participated in the online survey could also be involved in a group art making session. And then maybe they want to interview one of their family members one-on-one, as opposed to me having to be the one to do it. So there's many different ways in which this can happen. And I think for me, I guess I see this as like a narrative ecosystem or something, as opposed to like a project or I don't know. So that's my, and then exhibition.
Sorry, Jenny, could you just say that one last sentence again? You see this as a what?
Oh, a narrative ecosystem, like an ecosystem of narratives.
Yeah.
So the way that, the one type of, well, like when we do, even in a studio art practice, we make something and then it opens up into something else. And so maybe participating in a survey and answering certain questions, depending on the order in which you participate at these different levels, it could open up different layers of the narrative or make you change directions or something. So, and then these are different possible exhibition methods. So I think everyone's familiar with, you can have like streaming interviews and with, if people don't want to be identified, you can mask their voice or blur their face. You could have interactive data visualizations based on the online survey, et cetera, and these could be online or virtual. And I think that's pretty much all. I have some examples. Oh, here, I think this is easiest. Of like survey questions that I developed, but I think it's, yeah, like, so, I don't think, I'm not going to ask it this way because this is too many options, like 26 options for somebody to pick from, but this is kind of just gives you a sense of like maybe the tone or the kinds of the feeling or the space of questions that I would ask. So I might ask like race is, and then they can pick whatever they want as an answer, like all or none or 20 of them or whatever. And then if they want, they can add additional comments to explain why they pick this position. So maybe they pick, race is divisive, and they could write why. And maybe they also pick that it's meaningless on a societal level, or it should be, and they could, and so this kind of gives you an opportunity to, or the person an opportunity to really flesh out. And this project is also being done with the awareness that the way that we like self-evaluation is very flawed, but it's still better. To me, it's like, it's still more insight than not ever asking. So, like, I don't know if I could fully articulate how I think about race, but at least this provides some beginning, like something, like some way to start thinking about it. But I think I'll just stop sharing. Oops. Okay. So I guess that's all. Yeah, I think that's probably about five or so minutes. So
wow. You were in the process of creating a methodology. That's amazing. That's very exciting. I threw a couple projects in the chat. One is a book I'm engaging with in a class right now called Performing Survival. It's a memoir by Grace Cho. Are you familiar with this book, Tastes Like War?
I think I've heard of it, but no, I haven't read it. Yeah.
She's talking about how her mother is schizophrenic. And how her schizophrenia is deeply entangled with her history of working as a sex laborer back in Korea, and she like kind of pieces together like how essentially like entangled mental health is with our lived experience and our histories, and it's just a really powerful book. And there's also a great discussion of her in conversation with a few other folks who are doing similar work that I think would really you would find really interesting and captivating. And then there's this other project, the Rights Brewing Sisters Club, where women get together and just like process fermented rice while they're telling stories in a space together. So just thinking about like what is the action that's taking place when you're bringing people into a setting to connect around their different stories and histories of like Asian descent in like LA or wherever you're hosting these events. I want to open the floor up. Does anybody have like comments or Jenny, if you have any specific questions for us? Margot, yeah.
I just love how you're approaching thought process for how society, individual people of society can change their behavior through a thought process. Not imposing policy, but having it come from a ripple effect. That's what I'm kind of hearing with it, is a ripple effect. Thank you for really hard thinking and important thinking.
Yeah, thanks for that. Actually, it's funny that you use the phrase, did you say change something? Change their thinking?
Behavioral change.
Yeah. Oh, behavioral change. Yeah, because I wasn't even thinking in terms of change. I was thinking more in terms of just like awareness. But I think, yeah, I think that is an outcome of it's just like when we were listening to Lynn's and the process of self-reflection that does automatically produce, that awareness automatically produces some kind of change, or that, yeah, the kind of question like, what can I change or do I need to change? Things like that. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I was thinking of Deb's breathing. It's like it is a verb, awareness is a verb, and change is a verb, and they all are part of inhaling and exhaling.
Yeah.
I really loved all those flowcharts. It just made me feel so familiar from when I was in business school 25 years ago. I'm like, oh, look, flowcharts. But it's actually was really helpful because I've gotten so far away from that I actually feel like I'm going to go, and I have this whiteboard in my studio, and I think I need to go create a flowchart for myself, because I sort of feel like I'm thinking in these systemic ways, and flowcharts are really useful, and grouping things, and they can become a messy web, but anyway, thank you for that. It was a very coherent and structured way to create some parameters around such an incredibly complex set of interactions. And I could really follow what you were saying. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I think this grant thing really forced me to put it in visuals, and it almost made me feel like I was doing something productive, because I'm like, oh, now I'm creating like something that's art adjacent. Like they have colors and circles and lines.
Yes.
Yes, but it is. It totally is though, right? Like actually I looked at it first and I almost saw like Donna's tables. It's like I was like the aerial view of Donna's tables. Like,
Yeah.
oh, right? Like here are these different groups and these different sectors and they're connected, and how do we make sense of that? And so it's beautiful and it's analytic and it's beautiful, and there is this wonderful interaction. So thank you for that.
And it's great to have it visual. You know, you see some people are geared more toward the visual and learning quickly that way, as opposed to hearing something that might just go like that and you can't retrieve it. And so all of these things, smelling, tasting, all the senses, and that visual construct is really great to fall back on. You can look at it, you can think about it. And so much of what you're talking about relates to the ability to be open to things that you never thought about before, instead of being closed up. So I loved that structure. You know,
I hope you get the grant. When will you
Well, even
find
if
out?
at this point, it's like, now that I put so much, now there's just so many pages to it, it's like, I'll just do it even if I don't get any money. I'll just figure it out somehow.
Well, you also have so much to work with to apply for other grants and projects too now. And these flow charts are, like I just wrote in the chat, pedagogy and methodology and community building and healing as an art form. And I had a meeting with this, actually she was a Korean curator last week, and she was talking about how she spent a lot of time curating shows in Europe, and she was talking about how pedagogy and methodology and community engagement is so common in the European art scene, and it's been in practice for at least 20 years. And she was saying it's less so here, but it's definitely starting to become more so, especially as we're seeing in the art world the turn towards the social sphere. And I just would encourage you to like think about these charts that you're creating as artifacts that can really help other people in what they're trying to do in similar work. Like I'm about to start a storytelling collective, and I'm like, oh, what are all those that's all these ideas for different approaches to storytelling in different spaces. And yeah, I think that's so exciting what you're tapping into. And yeah, there's so many different. One thing I would caution to is I wonder, like, you're I love this phrase that you said, an ecosystem of narratives. Like you're gonna start drawing in so much content, and you're kind of essentially setting a web up to hold and connect so much content. And so I just wonder, like on the front end, it might help to really consider how you're gonna hold and provide a container to receive all of that content. Like, are you going to collaborate with people who will help you process it and put it together? So to support the potential expansive growth that might happen if you like actually press play on this idea, which is exciting.
Yeah, I think I'm almost not even thinking that concretely yet, because I'll have to see what will be the first stages. Because to me, it almost feels like putting a survey online is the easiest, but maybe ironically, it'll just be a one interview will be, so depending on how it all organically grows and what community organizations will be really excited to be part of this, if any, I think that will really guide the directions. But yeah, in terms of I did a lot of the reason I put this off for so many years is that when I thought about doing an online survey, it was originally going to be like the whole country or something, because it's like, why it's not really geographically limited. But I really started thinking about like, I don't have a computer server that can hold that much data, like really physical constraints like that. So yeah, I think those are things, but I don't think that many people will, participate. Maybe I'll just get a few hundred or something, or 1,000, I don't know. So I don't think that'll really be that big of a concern, but yeah, there are, even though like, I think I've dabbled enough in almost every academic subject that I have like enough background in programming even to do like to make my own little survey, or I can just use an existing platform where I've done my own little art objects, so I can, or like little workshops, so I could facilitate one of those. But yeah, in terms of scaling it or really committing to a particular process, yeah, that would depend on who else would be interested, I guess, in joining.
That's exciting. Power to you and your Asian American community. I'm wondering if anybody has any like last, we're at 3:53, and I do, and if you wanted to try to share your video, now would be a good time. Otherwise, I wonder if anybody has any parting words for each other or this space as we.
I know that Anne mentioned, or Anne put in the chat, this invitation or this idea of having, following up. Like, do you have any follow-up, or do you keep track of sort of all of the alumna from your different classes? And, is there a way that we could do like a reunion get together kind of thing, just to check in and to sort of see where we all are?
Yes, I love that idea. This is something I've been mulling over, how to connect people in my past classes to future classes. And I don't know if I showed you guys this, but in the Google Drive, there is this folder where you can share your work. I'm gonna follow up with you guys in an email. I also have a survey, this really short survey that I would just love feedback on about the class. And if you, so I'm gonna send an email out with a survey and consider a date that we can meet, like maybe in the summer.
Yes.
Back in and see where we're at. I mentioned I usually teach this class where the last two classes are much more spread out. So this is an experiment to see how it would, like, I think I'm gonna, next time I do this, give a little more breathing room to develop the projects more, because it is exciting to see how people do go off in a lot, in, the things really evolve with some more time. So I think checking back in is a great idea. There's one other thing I was going to say. Oh, I would love to share your work. Yeah, if you are interested in sharing your work, I would love to, in the least, put a. I'll mention this in the email. Just 3 to 6 images and like a paragraph about your project on my website. And ultimately, I would love to, down the road, create some kind of a public archive of these projects, so that people have access to see different approaches to different work. And by all means, if anybody has any resources to share, please do throw them in the Google folders where with the different paper making, dyeing, etc., because those are resources that you can continue to draw upon and that others can also. So yeah, I just want to say thank you all so much for being in this class and for just your quality of presence and the way that you show up. This is like kind of what Lynn was saying, like this is kinship, it's like thank you for coming to this with a sense of community, and being in space in a caring way with each other, and showing up and doing the and engaging with your work and thinking critically about your work and sharing it with each other. So thank you all for the blessing of your practice and your personhood.
Thank you, Anna, for a wonderfully orchestrated workshop. It was really great to how everybody had a voice, everybody was unique, and you encouraged all of that. And yet we have a lot of overlap too. There's a lot of things we're sharing between each other and our practices. So thanks for making it happen.
It's my joy. Thank you all. We'll have a wonderful spring. We are really on the cusp of spring. And I'm going to put these save the chat notes and put them at the bottom of the Google Doc. So you'll be able to find those there.
Thank you so much for that resource too. It's really just so helpful, and I'm going to keep connected and keep referring to it. And yeah, that's really helpful.
Awesome. And I'll put the recording there too.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Really nice to meet you all. Good luck.
Bye.
Nice to meet all of you. Thank you.
Yep. Bye.